Good morning. Namaskar. On behalf of Bharat Exhibitions, I welcome you all to the fourth successive edition of 5G India 2020. This year it's a virtual conference. Last year, I'm sure all of you remember that we had a wonderful event in Mumbai. This year, due to COVID-19, we are on a virtual conference. Our knowledge partner, Broadband India Forum, our other partners who has joined with this conference. We have support from Nokia, Keysight, Facebook, Fortnite, and Ritsu. These are the supporting for this event. Without not taking much of time from my side, let's start and hear from the experts who's going to talk on the 5G, how the 5G is going to come in India, what are the policies, what are the technology. We have Nokia here going to talk about how Nokia can take 5G further. We have Director General Telecom will be talking on the DoT policies. We have two operators. The other operator from Jio will be joining soon. We have Sandeep from Airtel. And ITSI, Adrian is here, our good friend, always in India. And Daniel, who will be talking on the fourth edition of 5G India 2020. Now I welcome Sri T.V. Ramchandran, President, Broadband India Forum, and an esteemed industry veteran. TV has been part of the mobile telephony sector in India in its very inception. You all know that he was the CEO of the Sterling Cellular, Delhi, and having established Cellular Operator Association of India, which is known as COAI. He is also a honorary fellow of IET London, and he's also the member of the high-level committee formed by Government of India for the 5G in India. TV sir, over to you.
Thank you, Shashi. Good afternoon to all. A very warm welcome to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and to respected chief guest, Shri Tushar Kanti Paul, from Director General Telecoms from headquarters, Delhi, Sanchar Bhavan. My great idol, Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy, the wireless guru of the country. My friend, Mr. Adrian Grace from SC, Sandeep Gupta from Bharati, Daniel from Deutsche Telekom, Germany. He's come all the way from Germany. And it's going to be a pleasure to hear him again. He was there with us last year also. And he deals with all the programs of 5G. And as you know, Deutsche Telekom is a great player in 5G. We would love to hear from him about their experience. That's a wonderful thing we are looking forward to. And Amit Marwa from Nokia, is a special person. Nokia is a very special name for us in India in mobile. And we look forward to hearing from him also. All his experiences here in India. Without much ado, I'll get on with it because time is limited. I would like to, apart from just welcoming you all, share a few thoughts to welcome 5G again into this annual function which we have, where we partner with Bharat Exhibitions Limited. I would like to first talk about India and 5G. Yes, 5G is not here yet, but I have been on the high-level government forum where Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy was there and many other eminent stalwarts, and a great roadmap was charted out for 5G, which is ready to be rolled out, executed, implemented. The time is coming now for that. We're going to start that. Recently, we did, through CUTS, the famous international consumer organization, headquartered in India, but present in Geneva, US, Africa, everywhere. It did a special survey on 5G in India. And you know their findings, they're very eager findings. First and foremost, the finding that their survey showed that all the people they surveyed are very eager, anxious, and waiting. Like Charles Dickens would say, "Buck is ready and willing for 5G, waiting for it to come into the country." So Indians have always loved technology, and I'm sure that this is going to get a great reception as soon as it enters India. Uh, the survey also showed that there were not enough understanding on some aspects of 5G in certain quarters. There were some myths floating around. For example, that 5G is all about speed. Of course, it is. It is about speed, much higher speed than 4G. But it is very much more than that. It makes possible so many unique cases which are not possible in any earlier G. And that's the big thing about 5G. People have to understand that and know that that is the sort of impact it's going to have with absolutely new use cases. There was also the inadequate understanding or the way it is going to make possible certain things. Like we all know Internet of Things and how so many devices are multiplying everywhere around us. But the existing Gs can't support that the way we are growing, the explosion in sensors and devices. Whereas 5G is the only G which will be able to support millions of sensors kilometers. So it's a humongous thing that will be possible. And that is going to create a very big change in our environment and the way things are done, efficiency, quality, our quality of living all around us, productivity, in many ways, all that is going to be impacted. Uh, we would therefore like to understand all these aspects and get that at the earliest. Why is it not there yet in India? For certain reasons, everything is ready, but certain everything has to have in Indian philosophy has to have the right time. The stars have to be in the right configuration. I think that's come together now, and I think it will happen soon. And I expect that by 2021, the beginnings would be there. Um, when we have 5G rolled out in India, what do we expect to see? I said about use cases, use case. That is because we're going to see something we have not seen before. India has just completed the silver anniversary of our being in mobile communications. Just a few weeks ago, we completed 25 years of the first mobile call where my friend Amit Marwa was with his mobile phone, made that possible. And we celebrated that just a few weeks. And in these 25 years, this country has seen all the Gs from 0G, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now knocking on the doors of 5G. Well, in all the other Gs, as Professor Ramamurthy would bear testimony to, and so would Adrian and others here, experts, Mr. Paul, we have been a bit behind the rest of the world in the entry into those Gs, whether it was 2G, 3G, 4G. We were about at least 10 years behind. For the first time, India is almost caught up. We are just about a year or two behind. And not only that, India is going to come with some ripe applications and possibilities. And some great work has been done in this area by not only Nokia and Ericsson and others, but our own IITs. Professor Bhaskar Amati has been leading. He's done fantastic work, he and his team, in developing a new standard, a new product for 5G. I think these are all going to see daylight. And what is unique is this is the first G that transcends telecom. It's no longer about telecom. When you come into 5G, it is telecom and much more. It goes across to several other verticals like industry, manufacturing, industry 4.0, healthcare, logistics, research, You name it, it's going to go into all those. So it is the first thing that is going to go out of the telecom vertical into your various other areas of work and living. That's going to transform the environment and accelerate economic development in this country. People are talking about how this is going to contribute trillions of dollars to the global economic environment. And that's probably an underestimation. So there, India has huge potential in this context. Having said that, with all this, I would also like to say, of course, we are going to hear from our great experts, Daniel and Adrian and others, about their experience abroad. But from a researcher's point of view, what I have seen, what is the finding? Because people have been running 5G in many countries so far. So, what is the latest finding on that? From what I see, a recent survey by Open Signal, who do testing of speed, etc., and other characteristics, in their survey of 15 countries, it showed that 5G users experience on an average, I repeat, it's on an average maybe, about 6 times higher speed than what you get on 4G. And it can vary. In Thailand, it is about 16 times what you get on 4G. In some other countries, it is 4, 6, 8, like that. Depends upon the local spectrum availability, etc., and other factors. But definitely, you're going to get multiple fold of what you're going to get now in 4G. That's one. It also showed that, for example, a country, a very important country like US, there the download speeds on 5G are modest. They are not at the top like Thailand or something, but they're good but modest. Much faster than 4G, but not at the top. And why is that? I'd like to share that with you. It's because it's due to a combination of the amount of mid-band 5G, what we call mid-band 5G spectrum available, and the widespread use of spectrum by the operators. At the same time, in US, it was found that Verizon, one of the leading operators there, which had millimetric waves, in its millimetric wave area, which was covered, it offered download speeds of as much as 500 megabits. 500 megabits is humongous. So it showed the importance of millimetric waves for 5G. And despite overall 5G still being immature, in the sense not fully realized everywhere, Open Signal data showed that user countries enjoy an active 5G connections for more than 20% of the time in all those user countries. More than 20% of the time, despite it being immature, not spread everywhere, people are using for more than 20% of the time. That shows the affinity for 5G developing. Again, smaller geographies like Kuwait, Hong Kong, etc., have excellent availability of 5G. But then we must see the challenge in big countries. Despite the big challenge, a country like US and Australia are able to come up with such results on download speeds and availability is really good. That's really remarkable and to their credit. And India being a subcontinent, it's going to have its own challenges, but I'm sure we'll put up a good show like US or Australia. So, net, I would say that 5G holds tremendous promise for India. All the spade work has been done. We do take a bit of time to do everything thoroughly in the beginning. We have done that, like in the case of 5G also. We came late in 4G, 10 years later, but see the way it has been taken up in India. Similarly, I'm sure when 5G is introduced a year from now, the take-up will be enormous, and our operators are eminently capable of solving the problems and taking the customer's delight forward. Over the course of the day, we look forward to hearing the great experiences of Deutsche Telekom from Europe, Daniel Brower from Deutsche Telekom is here with us. He's going to talk about it. Adrian Skres, he is the Chief Technology Officer of ETSI, the highest apex body for standards. And he's going to talk about it. Mr. Paul from DOT is here with us, Amit Marwa, and Professor Bhaskar Ramati, who we hope will talk something about their developments and what he sees as a vision forward for 5G and beyond 5G. With these few words, I would like to once again welcome all the esteemed dignitaries and our chief guest, and look forward to hearing from. Back to you, Shashi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, TV sir. May I now request Mr. Adrian Skras, the CTO of HITSI, to address the gathering. Adrian has more than 25 years of experience in the standardization. He played a central role in the creation of 3GPP and is responsible for the operations of 3GPP project coordination group. Adrian, over to you.
Thank you, Shashi, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes or so is to give you a global view of what's happening in 5G, and in particular, what's happening to support use cases which go beyond mobile broadband. First of all, some words about mobile broadband. Of course, mobile broadband is important. It's the basis of early deployments. It's the main priority for most early networks that have been launched. And it's been very well addressed by 3GPP in release 15 and now in release 16. But ultra-reliable low latency communications and massive machine type communications are also important. And if we look at how industry is going to be supported by 5G, it's really the combination of all three of those use case families. So mobile broadband, ultra-reliable low latency communications, and massive machine type communications that will ultimately support the industrial uses. Some words about where we stand right now and what the future looks like in terms of deployment. The chart on this screen tells a very interesting story. It shows that 5G, if measured in terms of subscribers, is growing, will grow much faster than was early projected. One takeaway from this is that by 2024, we should be touching the 1 billion 5G subscriber mark. So we're expecting quite rapid growth and uptake of 5G. If we look at where we stand today, taking my data from the Global Mobile Suppliers Association, as of August this year, there were 92 commercial 5G networks launched, and they were launched in 38 different countries. We have 86 vendors producing 5G equipment. 50 countries are planning 5G spectrum auctions by the end of 22, but 47 countries have already assigned 5G spectrum. So again, we're seeing quite rapid take-up of 5G, and the projection looking to the future is rapid growth. But it's not just about licensed spectrum. The standards up to release 15 allowed for both licensed and unlicensed spectrum use. But to use the unlicensed spectrum, you had to have an anchor in licensed spectrum. What happens in release 16 from 3GPP is that standalone operation in unlicensed spectrum is specified. Now, this gives an awful lot of flexibility in industrial applications. It allows you to select either between licensed or unlicensed or a combination of the two. Now, of course, this does create some concerns for people who believe that the use in unlicensed bands could cause chaos to other services like Wi-Fi. But I would stress here that the specifications are made in such a way that the use of 5G in those bands operates in the context of a good neighbor and protects the existing users. In a similar manner, 5G is not just supporting terrestrial deployments, it's also supporting non-terrestrial connectivity. Now, I've spoken about this before at previous 5G India events, and what's happened until to date is that extensive studies have been undertaken to see how we can integrate non-terrestrial connectivity as an addition to the terrestrial connectivity which we already have. And having completed those exhaustive studies and having determined that there is significant demand for this additional capability, normative work will now begin in 3GPP and release 17. So we can look forward to an integrated non-terrestrial component in addition to our terrestrial components. In a similar manner, if you think about 5G, most people think about public networks. That's the network operator with whom they have a unique relationship via their SIM card. In the context of 5G, this changes quite significantly because the concept of non-public networks has been specified. And for some industrial use cases, for example, large manufacturing plants, it might be that a non-public approach is more attractive than the public approach. So what 3GPP has done is specified three scenarios. It specifies how these services can be deployed by a public network operator, by a non-public network operator, and indeed the hybrid, where maybe it's attractive to have your own private network, but you wish to lease resources from a public network operator. And I've given you the reference on the screen here if you wish to go away and read further about this capability. In addition, many of the industrial use cases we're trying to serve require very accurate positioning. Right now, the positioning which is provided for in our networks is basically there to meet regulatory requirements, particularly for safety of life, for public safety. And typically, we're talking somewhere between 50 and 100 meters of accuracy to a mobile device. Of course, that's nowhere near sufficient for industrial use cases. If, for example, you wish to know where a robot is within a factory, you need to be able to do that within a few centimeters. And so extensive work has been done to study what technologies we can use to dramatically increase the accuracy of our positioning technologies. And again, I've given you the reference here on the screen. If you want to see how we intend to get accuracy down to the order of half a meter or so, then I would encourage you to go away and read a little bit more about that. We already heard from TV about the concept of massive capacity, where we have many IoT devices connected to our networks. In the context of 5G, the technology is specifically designed to cater for this massive capacity, where here we're talking by something like 1 million devices per square kilometer, that sort of magnitude. And of course, if you have this capability, you have to make provisions in your network to prevent chaos. If you take all of the smart electricity meters, say, in a large city, and if all of those meters were to transmit their daily updates at the same point in time, we would cause utter chaos. So we have to have the ability to randomly spread transmit time. Likewise, we might want to address all of those electricity meters at the same point in time. So we have to have this concept of device grouping. And finally, if we get to this context of massive capacity, we need to look alternative mechanisms to number, name, and address the devices. And here we really see IP version 6 coming to the fore and providing the ability to do that. As in previous slides, I've given you the reference here to a very interesting study. This is about asset tracking, which is one of the examples of massive device connectivity. And you can see what's likely to happen here in 3GPP to address that market. It would be wrong of me not to mention security. Of course, security is an imperative for all users of 5G systems. But if we're looking at how we support industry and industrial use cases, they have some very specific security requirements which need to be taken into account. So in release 16, 3GPP has completed a study into the industrial Internet of Things and the specifics of security for that domain. And then in release 17, you will see normative work being done to address those security requirements. Time for some conclusions then. From where I sit, many industrial sectors are demanding high availability, high reliability, low latency, and secure communications. And these are inherently supported by the 5G system design. Similarly, 5G is designed for use in both licensed and unlicensed spectrum, in both public, non-public and hybrid network configurations. It's designed to provide use coverage by both terrestrial and non-terrestrial technologies. It's designed to cater for massive network capacity. And so with 5G being deployed far faster than was first predicted, and with all of those capabilities that I've mentioned above, it's my contention that 5G will revolutionize many industry sectors. That's what I will address to this seminar this morning, and I hope you have enjoyed that.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Now, the next speaker, may I introduce Dr. Nilesh Dopte. He's the Senior VP Network Planning and Engineering, Reliance Jio. He got 25 years of experience in the telecom industry with additional 2 years experience in research and development of radio propagation and radar system. Received a PhD from Nagpur University in HF Doppler radar in 1995. Nilesh, over to you.
Yeah, just a minute. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Sachi. Thanks, Mr. Andrian. Well, you know, my boss, Mr. Shyam Mardikwar, was supposed to attend this, but because of some reasons, he could not. So I am taking charge. And important thing is, you know, I am not having any presentation, but we will discuss operators' perspective, what we, you know, what we see and where we are going and how we want to move somewhere. So I think Adrian already summarized the world scenario. Maybe we will try to look at India scenario also. And other important thing which you would like to discuss is what benefit you know 5G gives us as a operator, and how we can use this to serve our customers, to our nation, and benefit our customers and the country. So would limit discussion to these four, 5 points. So to start with, if I look at world scenario, we have almost 101 operators operational, and their networks are working with 5G, and almost 190 million subscribers are there who are enjoying 5G kind of speeds and the network. And we also see a tremendous growth over a period of time in 5G traffic. And if you look at the latest reports that we see, we have almost 1,550, you know, PB of traffic per month that is getting generated from this 5G network. I think whatever has been achieved in last couple of years is tremendous. And another important thing is that we have another 300 operators who are committed or investing or on the verge of, you know, very soon going to launch, you know, the 5G network. So I think 5G as a technology, I feel proven. We must get it introduced here also as soon as possible. And I think everybody is working towards it and hope to see 5G in India very soon. Looking at our present scenario, you know, looking at India, how we have moved, you know, in last 5 years, I think if you look at the internet use in India, something in 2016, we used to have about 174 million subscribers or users. Over a period of time, this number is now touching almost 700 million. We have huge growth that has happened in last 5 years. And when we look at traffic also, we have come a big way. If you look at the global broadband index, India has, from 155th position, today we are at number one position. And what has happened? I'm talking about 4G because we have those sites available, and giving that kind of footprint on 5G can be done very quickly. We have a coverage in India which is more than 99% of pop getting covered. Okay, we have a kind of data plans which are most affordable if you compare worldwide scenario. So that has given us a big penetration, and I think the similar thing has to be there during our 5G deployment also. And everybody is putting in efforts and moving in that direction. Now, coming to the technology part, I think we should compare ourselves with worldwide scenarios. And when we look at reports that we get from different benchmarking operators, what we see is, India has huge, kind of usage when we come to the data traffic. But when we come to a experience kind of scenario, we are delivering something like 10 Mbps or 15 Mbps in the best market, maybe 7 Mbps in some market, kind of a user experience that is getting delivered to our customers. I think going to 5G, the biggest opportunity that we see is, I think, the improvement in user experience. We have to, with this technology coming in, we will have, first thing is the spectrum, the efficiency that is going to generate almost 3 times spectral efficiency. Bandwidth is going to be huge. And with that, we will be able to deliver a huge, capacity in the market. And at the same time, the user experience, I think that can go multifold, in terms of the throughputs, both uplink and downlink. And I think this is, the scenarios are changing. Customers are demanding, they are every day demanding better speeds, better experience. And I think 5G is the only solution that we see to meet their requirement. I think coverage wise, we have gone deeper into, all the markets. They have 4G experience there. And now there is a demand that can we take it to, from present, 10 Mbps to somewhere 100 Mbps and plus. So I think that is the kind of requirement that we see, which is, which we look forward to and get them, deployed and ensure we give this kind of experience to our users. I think in addition to that, I think there are many markets where we see that with the present spectrum that we have, it is not possible to manage, the number of users in a very small area. So we see a typical scenario where we should at least have, a technology which can gives us at least 10 to 20 times more, or even 100 times in some scenario, capacity in terms of connected users on the network. And 5G kind of fulfills that requirement. So we support that. Coming to other things, we are having, a huge customer base, which are latency dependent even today. Most of them are gaming ones. And we understand some of them where, we see some issues related to latencies. I think with the 5G coming in, many of these customer experience related problems can be addressed, and we can have a much better user experience. In addition to, the technology support is, we are getting higher capacities, almost 100x capacities. Network efficiencies are getting improved. And at the same time, as I mentioned, the latency improvement of more than 10x. I think there are so many new industrial applications that can be targeted with this technology. I think with that, we are looking forward to a penetration in industry as well as enterprise market. Maybe to start with, initially, it may go as improvement in their speeds and the kind of connectivity which is there. Maybe it will be a kind of improvement for that. But over a period of time, I think automation and all other applications as per standards can be, implemented in the network. Maybe it may take some time, but it is on the cards, and we will do it. In addition to that, I think IoT is already working in a big way in 4G, and we see a huge enhancement in IoT coming up in terms of connected cars, smart buildings, connected retails, smart cities, healthcare, utilities, logistics service, connected industries, and connected, agriculture. I think all these segments are available and can be targeted through, the kind of applications that are getting developed. With that, I will stop, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Nilesh Dotte. Thank you very much sharing your views on the 5G India. We move to the next speaker. The next speaker is Mr. Amit Marwa, Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs, Nokia India. Amit, I got more than 25 years experience in technology, resale, sales, strategy, regulator, and business management. He also represents Nokia on topics related to standardization, spectrum management, and other industry engagement. As earlier, held technology and leadership role in Lucent, Motorola, and Huawei. Amit, over to you.
Thank you, Shashi. Is my slide visible?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll take about 10 minutes to run you through.
Little your echo on your voice. If maybe you can use the earphone, it will be good, I believe.
One second. Is it okay now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So I'll take about 10 minutes to run you through our take on what is happening on 5G, and also give a little bit of a perspective of where we are in India and where we should be, and what it takes to be there in order to make 5G happen in India. So 5G, the digital revolution, I think Adrian has said this, most of us agree, it's not an evolution, but it's a revolution. And it's moving very fast. The previous speakers already said there are hundreds of networks right now, commercial and getting deployed on 5G. If I talk about only Nokia, we have about 160 commercial engagements of more than 100 commercial networks right now running, and out of which about almost 35 or 40 are live. And as I speak, I don't know if one or two more will be added. So that's the pace at which operators are adopting and 5G is happening in the world. And we hope to see that soon in India. So in Nokia, we came out with a report which was called the 5G Readiness Report. I would encourage you to have a look at it. It should be available it's available on the internet. And it was about 1,600 people who were surveyed from 8-9 countries, key stakeholders, on trying to give their perspective on what is their readiness on 5G. And it was not a surprise, but it was a good, kind of finding of that more than 70 to 75% of all the people who were surveyed have plans to adopt 5G or move to 5G very, very soon. One thing also came out in the report was that the people who have already adopted 5G during this pandemic time have actually grown faster than the rest of the company. So yes, there is some economic value that we are already seeing with people who have evaluated. And then part of this report is also from Bell Labs, which is actually talking about the economic value. And the report says that up to 2030, there is $8 trillion worth of GDP that can be contributed by 5G. So moving on, in my presentation, I'm going to keep it very simple. And I'm going to keep it, I'm also a marketing guy, so keep it very, very crisp, it's very short, but just the key messages. Why do we need 5G? We need 5G to set the tone for the future. And what is setting the tone for the future means it's all about additional speed. 5G promises to bring up to 10 Gbps of peak data rates and 100 Mbps everywhere kind of speeds. It's probably 10x faster and 10x more faster response, which is the latency part compared to current. So it provides speed. As I said, the economic value, even GSA came out with a report recently and said that only because of 5G there could be a $2.2 trillion additional economic value that could be generated from 24 to 2034 in the next 10 years. And like I said, Bell Labs has done their own analysis saying 8 trillion contribution to the GDP up to 2030 from 5G. And 5G is about additional traffic. And what I mean by that is that, generally we've seen that traffic is doubling every 1.5 years across the world, across all operators. With this kind of traffic, the existing spectrum is not going to be enough. We will need more spectrum, we will need more capacities in the networks. And the way things are going right now, we need 5G to handle the additional traffic. In the next slide, we say, okay, this is why we need 5G and what does 5G bring? So 5G brings what we call the scope for growth. There is scalability, capacity, and openness. I think these are three unique things, more than what existing 4G networks or conventional networks are able to provide. Scalability in the sense 5G brings, virtualization, 5G brings cloudification, and hence the ability of the network to scale very fast to newer requirements. 5G brings slicing, which makes different types of scalability much possible for different types of use cases. Capacity I already talked about, but capacity from the perspective of also IoT, it is estimated that in about 1 million devices per square kilometer may get connected in the future. So not only do we need capacity for data throughput, which is growing very fast, we also need capacity for additional millions and billions of devices which will get connected onto the networks as 5G evolves. And hence we need more capacity, and it brings capacity. And then of course the openness part, which is right now a very active topic. So cloud and virtualization brings openness. Network slicing brings openness because you can have different verticals and different industry, use cases, use different parts of the network in a more efficient way. But more than that, it brings openness in the form of technologies like ORAN and vRAN and cloudification possible in the future. So this is what 5G gets to us when we move ahead. Coming to India, these are all relevant to India also, but more than that, what we need and why we need 5G in India is to drive the socio-economic growth. And where I say drive the socio-economic growth is, we are talking about a digital India. And if we are talking about a digital India, then 5G brings the platform and the ability to make digitalization possible in not only the conventional, mobile or fixed line services, but take it beyond that to many other verticals, as we have already talked about, whether it's Industry 4.0 or any other different type of use cases that 5G also brings differentiation, and what we mean by differentiation is that you can give differential set of treatments through slicing to different type of use cases or different types, and that is an ability which is beyond what 4G is able to deliver today in terms of revenue. We already talked about, also relevant to India because that's a topic. Everybody is struggling to generate more revenue and things are getting more difficult. So there is, green shoots of that or potential of that will be through 5G in the future. And of course, what 5G brings is ability to go beyond just mobile networks, which is connectivity to industry verticals, to enterprise, to grow our business, right from low-hanging use cases like fixed wireless access for rural deployment, to going more into more advanced use case like Industry 4.0, medical connectivity in rural areas, or whether it is e-education, or whether it is smart cities. It's unlimited how much we can do. So that is why we need 5G in India. But there are challenges, and for me, the biggest three challenges, if I have to pick, is spectrum, is there is return on investment, and it's the infrastructure. Spectrum, why? Because spectrum, it is important to have the right quality and the quantity of spectrum, because that becomes the real estate for actually making 5G happen. Investment and returns, we are all been talking about. Where is the money? It's good to say that we want to deploy 5G, but unless there is a return on investment, then where it is. Also, infrastructure, because India is stretched on infrastructure, especially when it comes to fiberization, and the need for fiberization and the ability to do fiberization through various policy interventions. So there is a challenge. So we need to all sprint to overcome these challenges which 5G brings. And what we need to do as industry, as the government, as key stakeholders, to have a robust spectrum policy. Again, in my view, this is the spine of the new India. The new spectrum policy, which has the right quantity, the right quality, at the right price for the spectrum, which makes it viable. We need the infrastructure, as we said, on 5G in order to accelerate the infrastructure part, whether it is fiber, whether it is right of way, whether it is having E and V band. And then we need the ecosystem. And that is the most important part, where I'm saying ecosystem, meaning ecosystem where multiple ministries join together to collaborate together. Industry members partner with each other to make 5G happen. Startup ecosystem wakes up and takes some control and some role in these types, and then the device ecosystem then falls into place. So all this is important in order to make the spine to grow and enable 5G in India. And last but not the least, before I end, I will just touch upon some myths and reality. A lot of people have this misconception that 5G is only about speed and capacity, 5G will replace 4G, 5G is radio technology, and 5G brings radiation which are harmful. So none of this is true. 5G is more than speed. 5G is about 5G is about new applications, new industry, new verticals, new economy that it can unleash. 5G is also about not replacing 4G, but it's a complementary technology to 4G. 5G is just not radio technology, it's end-to-end, and there is no proven impact of 5G on any health hazard. So with that, that is my last slide. I hope it was interesting. Let's enable India with 5G is what my last message would be. Thank you very much, Shashi. Shashi, you are on mute.
Thanks, Amit. Thank you, Amit. So Amit is very clear that it's not going to affect anyone's health, and we need 5G, and it is a complement to 4G. Thank you. Fantastic presentation, Amit. Moving to the next speaker is Airtel, Sandeep Gupta. Sandeep is the Executive Vice President, Network Strategy and Architecture for Bharti Airtel. Sandeep have more than 28 years of experience in telecom and technical marketing, business development, product management, spectrum strategy, device and network ecosystem. Prior to Airtel, he has served in senior management position in Huawei, Motorola and C. Sandeep, over to you. Sandeep, you are on mute. You are on mute.
Okay, hope you can hear me. Thanks, Shashi. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor and pleasure to be here as part of this distinguished panel talking about how we can accelerate and optimize the 5G opportunity for India market. The way I would like to see this and share with everyone here is take a step back and look at what we have done as India in the 4G domain, where we are. And I think it's the pride to say, as in country, that we have basically used mobile broadband to enable digital India And we've seen how the last 5 years, India has leapfrogged in terms of being the largest subscriber base on mobile broadband, highest data consumption, and that too at the lowest price per GB compared to anywhere in the world. This has basically enabled the mobile broadband services going to grassroots levels with all the digital services and digital citizen services coming from government and getting to the hands of people at the at the every level and every stratum of the society. So I think this is certainly a movement of pride for India. And for us in Airtel, I would say that we have scaled our networks over the last 4 or 5 years with highest amount of spectrum deployed on 4G network, more than 200K sites, bringing in technologies that Adrian mentioned in terms of carrier aggregation, LAA, which is the unlicensed spectrum aggregated with the licensed spectrum, massive MIMO type of interventions, and last but not the least, the Open RAN based virtual RAN deployments that have already been part of our network. Basically, overall, if I say that we have a robust 4G network that is ready for 5G deployment, which I think is very, very important for any 5G network to be very, very successful. I think very, very humbly say that with all these things, with all the interventions, we certainly have been rated as India's best mobile broadband network by multiple third-party platforms and agencies that I would like to showcase here. But I think just as we talked about, what does 5G bring in? And I think Adrian mentioned it, TV mentioned it earlier. It's about multiple aspects of what 5G can bring in. It's about speed, it's about low latencies, it's about higher concurrency, which is so critical for India and for 5G going, because it's going to enable Industry 4.0, where it's going to be not only about human to human communications anymore, but it's going to be about human to machine communication, enabling so much of use cases, so many of these use cases, whether it is about public networks, private networks, video analytics, talking about broadband networks in homes and enterprises, talking about healthcare and education, talking about obviously manufacturing automation. Everything is going to be enabled using such a platform, which will be enabled by 5G. So I think this is something that we have to keep in perspective, that we have to take the right steps to make sure that all these industries can get benefited, and it's not just going to be any more human to human thing. It's a human to machine, industry to industry, and machine to machine type of things. I think, as we say, that the basic ingredient or the raw material for any of these technologies to flourish is spectrum. And we did want to mention that as a country, we would need sufficient spectrum in multiple bands. And if you look at 4G as an example that India has flourished on, it's because we got the spectrum in the low band, which is the sub-gigahertz spectrum, the mid band, which is the 2 gigahertz spectrum, and then the high band, which is beyond 2 gigahertz spectrum. Similarly, in 5G, there are 3 of these bands, which is about millimeter wave, which is the capacity band, the sub-6 gigahertz, which is more about the coverage in the capacity band, and then the sub-gigahertz, which is about getting the 600 megahertz type of spectrum for rural coverages. So I think getting the spectrum is certainly important for 5G to flourish. But I think what I'll share about is what are we seeing as operator as critical success factors for 5G to flourish, accelerate, and really give benefits to the economy that we are all looking forward as a digital society and digital economy in India. Certainly, just to put this together, we see this clearly in 3 different directions. One is the network side, where it is very, very important that the network deployments are using the globally harmonized spectrum, the globally harmonized standards, and obviously the infrastructure to make sure that we can really create capacities as are promised by 5G. Device ecosystem is equally important, and then last but not the least, the applications for local use cases is going to be very, very critical for 5G to really flourish across industries that we're going to talk about. So talking about network, I think we just wanted to take a pause and just look back as to how things have panned out. If I look at 4 decades or 5 decades back and look at the media industry, we really saw that having islands of technologies, which was created because of, let's say, NTSC, PAL, SEQUENT type of systems, the world got divided. Similarly, if I just go back 10 years back in terms of how 3G was being rolled out, 3G was rolled out by multiple technology standards like CDMA, WCDMA, WiMAX, and TD-SCDMA, and the world got divided. But I think the way we are seeing is these type of islands of technologies are not going to help and have never helped in terms of scaling a technology. And that is one of the reasons that we see 4G has been flourishing across the world. And similarly, 5G will flourish provided we don't go into islands of technology. And why I mention this is it's important that we really have all our efforts in terms of harmonizing the innovation that is coming from India and other parts to be globally harmonized, because it's very important for us to see that anything that we adopt in India, if it is going to be local, it may have interoperability challenges that we've already identified, and hence global harmonization is a must of the local standard with the efforts that are being made in HC and 3GPP. Also, it is important to mention that if we have anything as a local standard or local implementation, we will end up into having more delays and higher costs because we'll have to have customized manufacturing lines or manufacturing capabilities for scaling this. In fact, if I were to summarize, I would say that it actually would defeat the purpose of Atmanirbhar Bharat that our Prime Minister has given us as a vision, because we would like to have Make in India product not only for local requirements but global requirements. And that is possible if we really have everything harmonized in terms of the global requirements and standards. That would be the way to accelerate in India. As I think we talked about, that 5G brings in more openness. Similarly, if we look back, Android is one typical example, 3GPP is another example, and now ORAN and OpenStack are examples in front of us, where these platforms have really scaled the economies of, really provided economies of scale and open platforms, where multiple ecosystem partners come in using this platform. Take an example of Android. Android has really enabled billions of smartphones in the last 10 years. Similarly, if you look at 3GPP, as I said, 4G has enabled billions of subscribers to be rolled out globally. Now we see ORAN and OpenStack, which are bringing these type of new ecosystem partners with complete open standards, open interfaces, which really will help us to bring the cost down. And I think our request has always been that now India should play an important role in this open ecosystem by bringing in more intelligence on this open standards and open systems, and create IPR through this intelligence that's going to reside in software based upon these open ecosystem solutions. I think that's where we should, as India, create more IP capabilities in terms of it. How do we differentiate in terms of creating more valuable solutions across the world? Talking about spectrum, I think it's been enough has been said, but I think with our DG technology being with us, I think we certainly would like to emphasize that spectrum in all the three bands, whether it's millimeter wave band, sub 6 gigahertz or sub gigahertz band, is equally important. India's spectrum right now is abysmally low, and I'm sure that our friends from global markets will talk more about it. And then obviously the spectrum has to be reasonably priced. It has to be affordable to make the business case work for 5G in India, especially at the ARPUs and the revenue levels that operators work on in India market. I think it's important for us to emphasize the need of millimeter-based spectrum, because this is a spectrum that will really make the capacity scale up both for the private networks and the public networks. It's going to help the economy in terms of creating use cases and capacities for industries, for information technology, for agriculture, for retail, and other sectors. And I think it's important that our policies are around 26, 28, and 40 gigahertz spectrum are ensuring that we get at least 4 to 6 gigahertz of spectrum in millimeter wave band, working along with Department of Telecommunications and Department of Space, identifying the right spectrum for the India market. I think towards the end part of our discussions, I'd like to emphasize about the need of having the right infrastructure. This is what was presented by GSMA, saying that India has about 25% or less than 30% of the towers on fiber, which is not really ready for 5G in some manner, because for 5G, you need to have at least 90% of your towers connected on fiber. And certainly there has to be a partnership approach from the government and ownership in terms of giving instant government permissions, unbundling the fiber assets between the operators, and finally giving the E-band, allocating the E-band for bringing wireless fiber in our country. So I think this is very, very important in piece to enable the 5G deployments. I think the last piece, if I may say, is about the devices, which has been talked about. India is very, very price sensitive, that we all know. And in the 4G, we have seen that 90% of the devices owned by the subscribers are less than 10,000 rupees. So this is an important milestone that 5G handsets have to really meet in terms of really making the scale happen, as we have seen on 4G networks. And the last piece is about the applications that were talked about. 5G certainly has a lot of potential in bringing the applications, whether it is in the agriculture domain, manufacturing domain, ports, education, healthcare. I think we have to work along with our academia and industries to bring the right type of use cases, which are really going to leapfrog our economy from where we are to a real, true digital economy, which is going to lead us to a $5 trillion economy in the next 4 years that we aspire to. So overall, I think putting these things together, I just talked about it, but I thought it's important that we just recollect what we talked about. It's about getting the sufficient spectrum at the right price, which is deployed with the globally harmonized standards. Fiber is very, very critical. We need to have fiber as well as the wireless capability in terms of E-band to get to the fiber reach for India market, and then the use cases and the devices to be ensuring that we really can enable 5G and give it in the hands of every person, every citizen in India in the next 5 to 6 years with the right ecosystem of applications and devices. So that I'd like to thank you, Sashi, for giving us this opportunity, and over back to you, Sashi.
Thank you, Sandeep. So Sandeep is talking about fiber, spectrum. Amit is talking about ROI. So end of the day, when we spend, everything has to come in. So we have the DG with us today. I'm sure he's going to talk on something on the spectrum and fiber. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's move to the next speaker, Daniel from Duche, who's the Vice President Program. Daniel Brower, who got more than Technology Business Operations Development of Deutsche Telekom. Having joined in 2001, has held various management positions, continuously driving the business in a globalized environment with focus on network quality, innovation, and cost. He holds a master degree in electrical engineering and has earlier worked at Siemens, Dallas, and Eastern Europe. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So first of all, I'd like to say excellent presentations from Sandeep and the other colleagues and Adrian. I don't know what I can say new after that. Yeah, really good presentation. So I can give you the perspective from Deutsche Telekom, and also like to thank you again for inviting me back this year. So really appreciate it. But when we take a look at let's say the 5G technology status from ours, DT was one of the front runners towards 5G. We had drove the 5G white paper in NGMN. We also performed in the beginning many tests and trials, and to my knowledge, we were one, if not the first commercial 5G NR commercially done in Berlin, worldwide. So it's really taking a look at it, and we already commercialized it in Germany. We're one of those that Adrian mentioned in his presentation that are already live on the market, and I'll get a little bit more into details in that in a few minutes. And the slide, as you can see on the right-hand side, is a little bit also in German, so everybody can practice their German. Vorne dabei, always in the front, leading with. So it's really, really interesting what we've been doing and working with the colleagues and other vendors. So what I'd like to say is a little bit about where we are, the foundation to build a successful rollout in Germany. Germany is a small country compared to India and much others, but we have over 86 million people living in this country. So in a very combined space, large number of people. So in Germany, after the initial rollout of the 36 gigahertz in the hotspots in the big cities, DTAC had selected the 2100 megahertz band and the most appropriate candidate to expand our 5G NR coverage. I'll get into that and show you a drawing in a minute. Yeah, the grid was already there for us. Yeah, it was because of 3G services we offered at that band. So we had developed along without the suppliers at that time a new software feature called DSS, Dynamic Spectrum Sharing, which is fully sharing the radio source blocks between the LTE and 5G NR on millisecond basis, yeah, and using the demands coming from the end user towards the network. This is fully integrated into our network, and I'll show you in just a minute. Yeah, this expanded the 5G coverage rapidly in the Germany territory. I'll show you in a minute how we did it and how it worked, but this really supported us, really helped us go into some of the more rural areas, which I'm sure you have also the same problem in other countries. So taking a look at the DSF, yeah, from an initial idea to boosting 5G coverage. So we started this whole thing the end of 2018 when it was just a concept was developed, and in a very short time period became reality for us. And everybody who works in a telco knows that in end of 2018, so basically a little bit more than a year and a few days or months, we managed to roll that out. And this is very important because we actually have in Germany more since Q2 2020, we have a total coverage of more than 50% of the population in Germany. And what's really important on that, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop till everyone is connected. And this really helped us in a short period of time cover over 50% of the German population. So trying to go to the next slide, if it will. Oh, sorry, it jumped. So, and taking a look at, this is kind of like a schematical how DSS works. When you take a look at it, we started in our top cities with our 36 gigahertz, expanding with 2100 megahertz towards the rural areas and countryside, which really helped us expand the reach of our 5G network using, let's say, talking about the antennas, LTE, 5G new radio, using what was existing that we had with the 21 megahertz, which really helped us speed up our in executing this. It may be an advantage for you in India, I'm not sure, but we could definitely discuss these things in the future. This really ensured our 5G leadership in Germany, and nobody could catch us anymore. So taking a look, what's really important for everybody to understand, Deutsche Telekom is not just in Germany. We're active throughout multiple countries within Europe. And the biggest asset to our network leadership and the majority of our European affiliates, we are offering significant better coverage than the competitors. I just wanted to show a little bit here where you can see what we're normally far above our competitors. And our aim is to maintain and expand our leadership in 5G deployment throughout all of Europe, not just Germany. DT wants to be #1 leading telco in Europe. And this is just an overview that you can see we're on it. But what's important, what colleagues have mentioned, there's still spectrum auctions. I think Adrian mentioned it, Stand Up and others. Spectrum auctions still ongoing in the different countries. There's different ways of doing it for verticals or campus networks. Some are being auctioned, some are not. Some are being allocated to the industry. So spectrum just being allocated to the industry that we as a telecom don't even have access of. So there's a lot of things going on and moving right now, and we want to ensure that we're the strongest mobile provider and that we stay on top of all the topics and move on. I hope I'm not talking too fast for most of the people. As a Texan, I'm normally slow. But it's really critical to maintain the leadership. This was mentioned a couple of times earlier. 5G is really all about perception. Even in countries where 5G has been launched, like in Germany or the US, yeah, a high awareness is there of what 5G is, but a very low understanding of the benefits. And I think that's all of our job to ensure that we make it very well aware what are the benefits of 5G. This is like a phenomena. Everybody's heard about it. 74% in Germany, it's increasing daily. But when you ask them what the benefits are, if they understand it, they have no clue. So obviously in the industry, we need to get better. We need to make sure that the people realize What are the strengths of the network? What are the benefits of 5G? I've seen it in every one of these presentations, but how many people really know it and really understand it from our customers out there? Not a lot, according to this. So I think we have a ways to go to really mobilize it. I'm sure the problem exists also in India and the others. People know the buzzwords, but do they know what they're really going to get out of it? Yeah. So by that, we have to do the use cases, which have been mentioned multiple times. I'm really happy because the colleagues did such a great job on the use cases. But taking a look at it from our perspective, we're taking a look at network slicing concepts, AR, VR, all that. Massive IoT was mentioned multiple times today. Campus networks and verticals in the industry. Yeah, I'll come back to that because we are working on that with the campus networks. So it's no longer just a B2B, yeah, but it's also offers to our B2C customers for AR, VR, gaming, etc. So we need to ensure that we're also offering not just the B2B and B2C customers to ensure that we get the reach that we wanted and the customers get the experience what they need. So taking a look, just a couple, they've been shown multiple times, but we've already launched by us what's called Magenta Cloud gaming platform in Germany. So it is launched, it's up, it's running, it's active. Excellent results we're getting, excellent feedback. I think we won all the awards in Germany again this year for our network. And the other one, what we're really concentrating on right now is the 5G campus network. So we have several cooperations already launched, including in 4 industries, customers, and gentlemen, there's more to come, much more to come. This is just a short example, what we say as campus networks, M and L, that means medium and large, it gets small, where we actually have already launched with these customers and we're moving on to the next steps, yeah? And this is very important and we've learned a lot how to do this, and we actually started coming into these big factories and taking a look and understanding the real needs, what they do, and then them understanding what we as telcos can provide for them utilizing our 5G networks. And I think we've made it a long ways and finally getting there, and we have a long ways to go, but it's already started and up and running. So, and then gentlemen, very simple. What comes next? Yeah. We had just mentioned it, 5G campus solutions we're working on. We have the 5G SA introduction, everything is going, yeah. And yeah, this is very important, end-to-end slicing, you know, really the 5G different slices we're doing in the industry. It was also mentioned multiple times, things that we're doing in the medical area, very important, connected cars, all the things. This is very important that we use with the end-to-end slicing. And we were not stopping, we're going to move on. 5G indoor enhancement. We found with certain frequencies of 5G signals in the house, other things were needed, indoor repeaters, whatever, yeah? So we're really trying to take a look at 5G indoor to enhance the signals depending on which frequencies we're using. We had different, let's say, test results in our proofs of concepts, or even in our live network where we've seen that we have a lot to work on in the future, yeah? Oh, sorry, I heard a beep there. So quality of service on 5G end-to-end, obviously, and basically try to make it within the 10 minutes. That was it. When I say open for questions, my contact details are on the bottom. Please send me emails if you have any questions, because I think the Deutsche Telekom is one of the worldwide leaders in 5G. We have lots of experience with the different spectrums, with DSS, with how do we roll it out, and we will not stop until everyone is connected. And that's our motto, and we will keep it going. So thank you very much. And one last thing, I hope everybody stays healthy. So you guys all have my best wishes and stuff. Stay healthy in these crazy times. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. You too keep yourself safe in your country.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we are moving to the next speaker who doesn't need any introduction. Our guest of honor, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, Director, IIT Madras.
Thank you. I'm not going to use any slides, which I think most people will be happy about, because by now we must be having slide fatigue. I don't think I have too many things that are going to be very new, but I do think that I have some perspectives which may be useful, which I'd like to share with everybody. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, first, let me thank you for inviting me to be part of this session. And I very much enjoyed the talks given by the experts who spoke before me. So, I've been involved with a lot of the work related to 5G that is being done in India, both in the IT standardization, ITU, and also in the I'm coordinating the national effort to build the 5G testbed. It's being done at 8 institutions. So, I have a fairly good idea about what's going on, and also what I'm hearing in terms of the challenges we face, as well as what we expect are the big impacts that 5G should have in the country. So one thing that has been brought sort of in your face to us in the last 8 months because of the pandemic is the absolute importance of this connectivity. You know, I shudder to think that 4G came into India only 4 years ago. But for 4G connectivity, what we have of it, we cannot claim to have connected every Indian, particularly as you go to the rural areas, particularly as you go into the less developed rural areas. You'll find there's a fair amount of the coverage is not very good. But the fact remains that a substantial part of the population is able to do many things, right from banking to getting, education, even simple, at whatever level it's feasible, simple schooling, and then at higher education and so on. A lot of the work, even teleconsultations with doctors, many things that were not going on earlier because of various barriers, some of them mental barriers. Doctors, for example, were not that willing to do teleconsultation. But pandemic has changed all that, and we have managed as well as we have only because of the connectivity that 4G has provided. So this makes it very clear that the first sort of almost baseline imperative with 5G is that, as somebody mentioned before me, it has to be affordable. Otherwise, it may be capable, but the uptake will be slow. As long as we hit the affordability mark, and we pretty much know what it has to be for devices and for the network and for the monthly ARPU, as long as we can keep hitting the affordability mark, which keeps going up with time. It was not long ago, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, when people could afford phone devices which were substantially lower in cost because they didn't have the ability to buy smartphones. But that has changed now. So it's a moving target, but as long as we get it right, I think the first baseline requirement is we really want to connect everybody everywhere with broadband. There's not much wired broadband in the country directly to the subscribers. We never had telephones before cell phones came. When I say we, I mean bulk of the country. They'd never seen the old landline telephone and still haven't seen it. So there is no wireline connectivity, and wireless broadband is therefore to every nook and corner of the country is very, very critical. And as was mentioned, I think whenever the sooner the integration with satellite happens, that will take care of even our far-flung areas, our desert areas, our hill areas, and so on. But in the rest of the country, a lot of it is in the plains. Most of the people live there. We need to get there as soon as possible. And this was one of the things uppermost on our minds when we took the requirement of low mobility large cell use case to the ITU as one of the requirements of 5G. It was appreciated, and it was made a requirement, though there were some, we had to agree to a smaller coverage requirement in the ITU because of various different viewpoints that were expressed. We wanted up to 6 kilometers coverage because the fiber penetration in India that was planned, by far India is the largest user of this this use case. So the fiber penetration was planned, is planned even now requires about 6 kilometers coverage in about 33% of the village of the rural areas. So we wanted that, but what was agreed upon as a requirement in ITU was only half of that. That doesn't mean that the technologies we develop cannot do better. So we are hoping that 5G will actually provide the coverage that India needs to ensure this kind of ubiquitous connectivity at the earliest, because that's the country is at the point now where this is going to become very important for the economic development of the individual, not just of the countries as a whole, but of the individual. So this is something that is one of the key things, and for providing so much capacity to connect 7, 8. Even if you leave the small, under 10 children out, you're talking of connecting some 800, 900 million people, a billion people. You want to provide broadband connectivity to all of them using wireless over a 3 million square kilometer area. I think we need tremendous capacity. So 4G has done a reasonable job, but 5G will definitely make a big difference, because 5G has so many improvements in it as far as getting more data rate and therefore lower latency in the same spectrum. 5G also has more spectrum allocated. Expected to be allocated. So all of that will go to serve this purpose. And in this context, I'd like to say that I think there's no doubt that you need a technology, a standard that is interoperable all over the world, because this is a mobile phone. You also need something, and it also plays into global economies of scale. You also need something that is part of the global roadmap, so that it continues to evolve. And the way we have done the innovations out of India to get the extra coverage in rural areas is, in fact, keeping that in mind. That the analogy I'd like to share is that of the the humble chargers that we all carry around today. Ever since the switch mode power supply technology came, your chargers became universal. You can plug them in without thinking into any 110, 220, any volt outlet anywhere in the world. You won't damage them at all. They work equally well everywhere. Whereas that was not the case earlier. You had to be careful. So it is in that whatever we have done is in that spirit, that it will be interoperable and it will actually provide the enhanced coverage that we need, with no islanding of the technology or the equipment needed. It's the same equipment will work everywhere, whether the enhanced coverage is supported by the network or not. So this is really what we've attempted to do, and I hope and I think whatever we have done in India is useful everywhere in the world. I have a strong belief that it will be adopted and folded into into the solutions that are provided all over the world. So this is really where we think, as far as the rural coverage is concerned, but that I said is a baseline requirement. That's not all 5G. That's not hardly what 5G is all about, but it's something that almost will be expected and be taken for granted. We cannot go into the next decade also with patchy coverage in our rural areas. This is the first thing. The other things I pointed out, I think there are many aspects of 5G that are going to be have very important use cases in Indian context, and I suspect in the context of many other economies that are in a similar state of development. If you take the V2X, the ultra low URLLC capability of 5G, it is being looked at a lot for autonomous driving and so on in many advanced countries. It will ultimately be looked at for that in India also. But so I see that potentially early users will come if we innovatively harness the URLLC capability of 5G to actually reduce our accident rate. It's well known that India is the accident capital of the world. We have the highest number of traffic accidents and mortality in the world, given for the by any you can use per capita per vehicle. It's very high, and we need to harness this technology to actually make it possible between the capabilities of the governance system to pin responsibility as well as aiding the users of the vehicles to avoid dangerous situations. We have to use this technology to make a big dent in our traffic accident and mortality rate. Actually, interestingly, if we do that, autonomous vehicles will come faster in the country. Otherwise, given our immutable road conditions, we are not going to get wider roads or bigger roads overnight. Autonomous vehicles are almost impossible. Another very good important use of this new capability will be in not so much in fancy remote surgery because the particular qualified surgeon is not available. Is available only very far away. That's not the situation there, but a very different situation where because of our the state of our transport systems very often takes unconscionably long time to take critical patient from the accident spot or from wherever the person has a major health incident to the hospital. Ambulances in most countries are just quick transport systems to maintain the patient till they get to the place where all the facilities are available. I think ambulances in India will have to become, in many cases, the first line of treatment. Some kind of more than what is done in ambulances elsewhere in the world will have to be done in our ambulances, and through paramedics, through live, very high quality connectivity between the hospital and the paramedics in the vehicle. So I do see the use of this capability of 5G also in a measurable way. You can actually look at how we can use this to reduce the mortality of trauma as well as the cardiac arrest and such things, the golden hour, how we can actually reduce the mortality in those cases. In terms of machine to machine, I did hear a lot of interest, the talk about the campus networks from the previous speaker. I heard very similar focus in Japan. They call it local 5G. I think that's going to be very important. I may be wrong, but I don't see many companies, especially the large ones, which are going to be the early adopters of this, allowing their data to go anywhere, to be connected to any bigger network, and or even depend on coverage from a larger, area-wide network. Local 5G, which is local to the particular manufacturing setup, has huge potential, and how that can be deployed by the carriers using the same spectrum, and then managing all the spectral resources well is an interesting challenge, and that can be very useful, very interesting. Millimeter wave itself can play a very quick role before E-band and all of that is sorted out in providing both last mile, last few hundred meter connectivity to high capacity users for whom, for some reason, it's not cost effective to take fiber to, and also to backhaul, small cells and other things, because fiber penetration is an ongoing business. It will keep improving with time, but we need to attend to immediate needs till the fiber slowly penetrates deeper and deeper. So I think millimeter wave will play a big role in that. Apart from the role it will play in very high density user situations as in stadiums and so on, it should be similar to elsewhere in the world. And finally, I would say that the softwareization, somebody mentioned about the ORAN and the intelligence and the innovations moving into the software. It's already happening in a big way. More or less, it's very clear that the radio head end, the RRH will be the only thing that will be, which will be in a sort of proprietary kind of platforms with a lot of software in it, but embedded software. Rest of it will all be running on commodity hardware, located all over the place, local computing, and everything will be softwareized. Not only the core, but even a significant part of the RAN. And this is the way it's going to go. This will enable the service providers to have a lot of flexibility in the kind of terminal equipment that they will use. The RRHs, they will use small ones, large ones, covering large areas from towers, little ones covering indoor or congested regions and so on. All kinds of things are going to be feasible. And this is one of the nice things that big change that is happening, and which will actually play into the capability of the service providers to provide a very efficient, cost-effective network to meet all kinds of different user needs. This is happening, and this will enable, I think, a lot more innovations to come into the equipment and available solutions available on the network side. I think devices is going very well. These cost targets that we're looking for will be met, as we've seen it was done in 3G, it was done in 4G, it will happen in 5G too. It's inexorable. And it'll be interesting that if we have lots of users depending on these devices for even for education, in addition to phones, whether they're going to be other kind of tablet kind of devices, or how do you get devices that have multiple in the best possible way, multiple uses, so that they're affordable. It may not be easy for many people to afford multiple devices which are optimized for different uses. So there is an interesting opening there, even in kind of new kinds of devices. But I don't know how well that's going to be addressed in the short term, but definitely I do see that. And the increasing manufacturing and value addition that is beginning to happen in India in the device space will, I think, open up create the opportunity for such new devices that will take the users by storm to emerge. I think that will also happen. With these thoughts, I'd like to conclude, and if there are any questions, I am happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy. Thank you very much. So, a lot of knowledge he has been sharing with us for the operators as well as OEM like Nokia, how to take the 5G into the next level. The same Amit will say, sir, he needs an ROI, because ROI is very important for Amit to run his company in India. I'm right, Amit? So having said that, so now let's move to the next speaker, who is our chief guest today, Shri T.K. Paul, who's the Director General Telecom Headquarters and LSA Delhi, Department of Telecom. Paul, sir, over to you. May I request Shri T.K. Paul to log in? He is already there. I think he's mute and his video is off. Yeah.
Thank you. Dear members, we have heard all the learned speakers covering almost all the issues. DOT has been very serious right from the beginning.
Sir, your video is still not in broadcast. Just to. It's only we can hear your voice.
The learned speakers have already covered most of the important things. Professor Bhaskar has also emphasized on LMLC, which is a contribution in the field of 5G from India. Now let me take up some of the important things which has been discussed. We are already having 70 million broadband connections already. We have around 22 lakhs BTS, and similarly we have around 6 lakh towers, out of which only 30% are fiberized. So we have a long way to go, and government is already serious in the business to make it fiberized, so that the roadmap for 5G is clear. Not only this, DOT, we require the help from the state governments as well. In order to go for 5G or even 4G, there is a need to lay the fibers, very huge quantity of fiber is to be laid for this. Similarly, we have to increase the tower density from 0.4 to 0.4 to 1. If we see the villages part, we are having around 600,000 villages, out of which 60% of the villages are covered with 4G. As far as villages are concerned, they are having presently pretty good connectivity as far as bandwidth is concerned. I have visited many villages and have measured speed around 30 MB or so. Now, regarding this 5G has started with 5G high-level forum set by the government in the year 2017 to expedite the rollout of 5G services in the country. Several of these recommendations are already put into action in line with NDCP objectives. To fully exploit the 5G capability, there is a need for large investment, use cases, and scalability of applications. I'm confident that looking at the global scenario, industry is excited to bring in large investment to reap the potential of Indian market the way we saw the revolution in 4G and its coverage. Several countries including UK, USA, Germany, etc., they have been rolling out 5G test beds and uses labs in a big way to work on use cases. Uh, as you may be aware, our professor has also told about it. Government of India is funding the academia consortium led 5G test beds in all the IITs, led by IIT Madras, with a total funding of around 224 crores, out of which 171 crores have already been disbursed. After scanning the 5G development ecosystem, the following sectors, among others, are considered highly relevant to explore 5G use cases, taking note of Indian industry's competencies. First is financial technology, fintech, then agriculture and rural, third is health, fourth is automobile, fifth is smart cities, and sixth is education. Now, DOT is holding discussion with DST, MIT, and other ministries to establish use cases labs where I invite industry partnership. The first use case lab at IDRBT, that is Institute for Development and Research in Banking Technology, is established in partnership with Department of Financial Services. This lab in fintech segment will work with all other COEs, that is Center of Excellences, companies and institutions to develop respective use cases. As part of harnessing emerging technology, it is critical to establish as many as such uses labs and make them available to the developing community. It is important to note that India had negligible ownership in the communication technology. However, considering the design competency developed over the years as part of providing software and design services products to global companies, India is in a significantly advantageous position to develop end user applications using 5G capabilities. Now, you must be interested in knowing this. Spectrum for 5G is an important area for consideration in both access and backhaul. The access spectrum in mid-band is under active consideration for 5G globally. The band referred to TRAI, that is 3.3 to 3.6 gigahertz, that is mid-band, is being actively discussed with other stakeholders to make it available. There is a positive outlook to address the issues and make the spectrum available for IMT services soon. The discussion with regard to millimeter band, that is 24.25 to 27.5 gigahertz, is positive, and there is a revision on protection requirement to protect space services while enabling IMT in the band as well. While there are different views from the stakeholders on backhaul spectrum, especially EV bands, DOT is examining different issues very carefully. I welcome more deliberation and inputs in building demands in the country for strong use cases which will enable early deployment. I also appreciate effort of the Broadband India Forum and other associations and think tanks enabling active discussion on 5G and enabling its adoption. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing the views on the DOT part. I would like to thank each one of the speakers as we come to the end of this inaugural session. Special thanks to our chief guest, Shri T.K. Paul, guest of honor, Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy, Sri TV Ramchandran sir, Amit ji, Nilesh, Sandeep, Adrian, Daniel, each one of you, thank you very much for joining the virtual conference of the 4th edition of 5G India. Hope next year we'll be able to do the same event in Mumbai as we did last year, so that we all can meet each other and share more information, and looking forward to the launch of 5G in India. Having said that, I request all of you to go to the virtual exhibition. We have the virtual exhibition in the platform, and also fill up few forms which are available there, the feedback forms, so that we can keep on improve on this. We don't know how long we need to go on virtual, but still for some time we need to go on virtual till we come back with the vaccination, etc. Having said that, thank you very much. We will move to the next session now. I request all of you to please thank each other, and my thanks to all of you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.